Now that we learned what Angular is, let's build our first Angular application, since this is the best way of finding out how it works. Now, throughout this whole course, I'm going to use the Angular CLI command line interface. This is simply a tool set which makes creating, managing, and building your Angular applications very simple. It quickly creates new Angular projects, and then you have some commands you can use to build that project for production and so on. Why do I use the CLI and not just import the Angular framework in an existing index.html page? Because Angular is a very futuristic framework, and therefore it uses features like TypeScript, which is a superset of JavaScript, which needs to be compiled before it runs in the browser. So it has some extra steps we have to take into account during development, and doing that manually can really be a pain. That's why the CLI is really an awesome solution and will be used in this course. Later in the course, though, I do have a section where I do explain how you could build your own project from scratch, but even then, it will be more than just importing a script file. So for the CLI, what we need is Node.js. Node.js is a server-side language, and no worry, we're not going to write any server-side code. We simply need Node.js because the CLI needs it. Behind the scenes, it does some things with it to build our project and to manage our dependencies, the packages we use, like the Angular framework itself, and it also spins up a little development server which will host our app on our local machine, making it easy for us to test it. So make sure to download the latest version of Node.js here. Simply download it and go through the installer. Should be very straightforward. And once you're done, go back to this page, and here you basically see all the instructions we're going to run through in the next seconds together. So we will need to open a terminal window on Linux and Mac, or simply the command line on Windows. And once you did this, like this, we simply run the following command to install the CLI after you installed Node.js, that's important, on your machine. npm, that's the Node Package Manager, a little tool which was installed together with Node.js, and one of the main reasons why we had to install Node.js to begin with. Install. Then -g for global to install it globally on your machine, @Angular CLI. @Angular CLI simply is the package we're using, the CLI itself. Now on Linux and Mac, you may need to put a sudo in front of that. On Windows, that will not be required. And then, maybe after being prompted for the password, this will run through the installation and download the CLI on your machine and install it. If you're encountering any problems during that, check out the lecture after this one, where I will do some troubleshooting, highlight some common problems, and how you may debug that and get this to run correctly. If then it still won't work, open a Q&A thread and I'm happy to help. Well, I'll be back once this finished. So, the CLI installation successfully finished for me here. The next step is to create a new Angular project with it. For this, you should navigate in the terminal here into the folder where you want to create this project. So with the cd command. Now I already am in the folder I want to create it. And then the command to create a new Angular project is to run ng. That command is available since we installed the Angular CLI. So ng will refer to that CLI. New to create a new project, and then your project name. I'll simply name it My First App. Of course, choose any name you like here. That will also be the folder name of the folder which gets created where this project will be stored. Then simply hit enter to create this new application. And now this will take a couple of seconds. It will basically install all the required dependencies, for example, the Angular framework itself, and it will inform you once it's finished. So I'll be back once this is done. The creation of the project finished for me, and now I can navigate into this newly created folder with cd my first app, and here we can run this project with ng serve. What this will do is, it will build all our source code, as Angular uses TypeScript, which needs to be compiled to JavaScript, more on this in a later lecture, and then it will spin up a little development server running at this address here, where we can see our running app. Why do we need a server and don't simply double-click the index.html file? Well, due to the nature how Angular works, it loads a lot of resources dynamically once it runs, and we can only simulate how it would really look like on a real server if we use the HTTP protocol, which we don't use when double-clicking on a file. So with that, since we know that it will run at localhost 4200, we can simply visit this page by entering it in our browser And we should see app works, which basically is some dummy text created by the CLI showing us that it indeed works. That is how we can set it up. In the next lecture, let's edit this app and dive into it and see what the CLI exactly did create for us.